Hey, what's going on, everybody? Dandro here. We had a tweet hit the timeline from Call of Duty legend Clayster that kind of caught my eye and spurred on some thoughts and had some things that I think would be fun to talk about. Before we dive into the video, I want to remind everybody, make sure you're hitting that bell and subscribing to the channel for more content like this, where I'm going to be breaking down teams and other things from Warzone. And if you want to come check us out, obviously on TikTok and Twitch, you can find us playing Call of Duty, multiplayer, Warzone, and a number of other shooters, so we'd love to have you stop by. With that being said, though, let's jump into the meat of it. We have Clayster tweeting out, low-key, very serious about World Series of Warzone. Got the next 5 months off, and I'm ready to grind. Who are some Warzone demons that want to sketch on their third for me? You gotta love that Clay banter. We even had other Call of Duty pros respond to that, namely Attach, who said, hey, this sounds fun. How do we get in on it? And I think what this is really just kind of a little bit of a foreshadowing to what we might see over the next couple of months. Now, obviously, this last weekend, we just had Call of Duty Champs wrap up. Congratulations again to the New York Subliners. And so now we have a lot of Call of Duty pros who are going to kind of be looking for something to do for the next couple months. And well, when you've been playing Modern Warfare 2 for the past 8 months, what better way to transfer your skills over than to come over to Warzone 2, especially when we have a $1.2 million prize pool going on for the World Series of Warzone. So it's no surprise that that's looking attractive to some of these multiplayer competitors. Now, this wouldn't be the first time that we've seen some of the multiplayer competitors start dabbling in Warzone, right? But realistically, when we've seen that before, it's kind of been a little bit of a dud. We haven't really seen anyone come on over and in a high tier competitive sense really make a splash. Of course, we've had players like Priesta and some other kind of professionals are able to break kill records and stuff in public lobbies. That's fine, that's no surprise. But we're kind of in the era, specifically when we're talking about the World Series of Warzone, of just the best all in one single custom lobby. Now, obviously, like I alluded to earlier, some of these professionals, they might think it's a little bit of a walk in the park to come on over and be able to be competitive just immediately off the rip with some of these squads. But I actually am of the opinion that I don't know if that's true. Nobody's doubting that they have the gun skill, right? But I think there's a lot of intangibles that come into this game that I think they all need to work on. So why do I bring this up? Well, it's because I think when we talk about a player like Clayster, he actually brings a lot of the things you want in a top tier competitive Warzone player. And that's what I want to talk about today. Looking back on Clay's career, it's obvious that he's had a ton of success in the multiplayer realm, right? And there's no question about his gun skill. I mean, the guy is the oldest in the league and is still pulling off plays like this.
All absolute craziness across the map. Oh my goodness, what is going on? Hold your breath. Vegas Legion, take the lead.
But like I said, gun skill is only about maybe a third of it, right? If you ask any top tier Warzone player, they're going to tell you that communication and team chemistry are just as important as your ability to shoot your gun. Because in these lobbies, everybody is insane when it comes to their accuracy and their ability to manage recoil and things like that, right? So you have to really kind of look at what are they bringing to a team besides just gun skill. And that's what gets me so excited about somebody like Clayster entering the foray, because I think he actually brings a lot to the table, just given what he's been able to do in multiplayer. So far in the World Series of Warzone, we've seen just how important communication is, right? And we're talking a little bit more than just macro sort of call outs of like, hey, this is what I'm doing, or there's a team over here, right? But also small talk amongst teams. If you're not familiar with small talk is, it's this concept that we have where it's more about sort of the smaller, minute details that you're sort of communicating with your team about, like, hey, I'm watching this cross for you. You can be able to go over here and play this. I got this push for you. I'm holding this for you, right? It's these types of communication that really can set a team up for success. And especially in Warzone, right? It's really important, right? Maybe you want to know what streaks do we have, so that way maybe we can make a play. Do we have smokes in our toolkit, right? What do we have here to be able to make maybe a rotation efficiently? It's this small talk that teams are finding is really crucial in order to have success in some of these lobbies. Being able to efficiently small talk is just an incredible skill, and Clayster brings that to his teams. If you listen to any of the listen-ins from this last multiplayer season, you know that Clay is an effective communicator, right? When you've been in the scene for this long, you understand how important making those comms are to your teammates and making them clear. You want them to be very direct, and also understanding how the small talk works, right? One thing we've also seen with Clayster is his ability to teach this skill as well, right? When you've played on so many teams like he has, we've seen him been able to take younger players and mold them, increase their communication, increase the level at which they are able to talk about these things. And I think that's going to be really, really nice for whatever squad he ends up on. The other thing that Clay can bring to a team in some of these intangible realms is just a veteran vibe to any team, right? Like when I think about a Warzone, right? Warzone is going to be this sort of game of stressful situations. You have to be able to really analyze maybe your plays and what went wrong when you're moving forward, right? When we're looking at the World Series of Warzone, a lot of times you have 6 maps, right? And you got to make some of these analyses in between those maps. Clay is no stranger to that, right? This guy's used to playing scrims for 12 hours a day, essentially, and then, you know, doing some VOD review over what did they do wrong in that scrim, and then how can they get better. I think he's going to be able to bring some of these sort of work ethic, essentially, to any team of being able to, like, have that criticism and be like, yo, this is what we did wrong, this is what we got to do better, and we'll be able to kind of be a sponge and learn from those around him at the same time. He's going to be the guy helping the teammates stay calm in those tense situations and be able to be the one to bring them up. Maybe if they made a play that didn't work out well and they're really beating themselves up about it, Clay's going to be that first person to want to speak up and try and bring their momentum and bring their spirits back up, because, you know, he knows what that's like and knows how comforting and how that's what a leader does on a squad, right? They help bring up those around them, and he's seen that impact. I know I said Gunskill was only about a third of it, but there's a little bit of a nuance specifically when it comes to Clay that I think is also really exciting to think about. We saw multiple times in multiplayer this year where maybe in hardpoint, if one of those points was a little bit more in close space, Clay was okay picking up a sub or bringing one out and trying to use it for that point to be able to help out the team, right? So when you have a guy who's a fantastic AR, you know that, but also has some machine gun prowess, well, those skills are going to directly transfer over to Warzone when that's really kind of the 2 skills that you're using, right? You want that AR tendency to be able to control your recoil at range and be able to laser people while they're running out in the open, but you also want to be able to have that skills that you can bring out that submachine gun if you got to breach and clear a building. So the fact that Clay has been able to do that at, you know, basically the highest level in multiplayer, I have to suspect it's gonna be good when he's able to bring that over to the highest level of Warzone. I think one of the biggest questions people might have about Clayster joining the Warzone scene is that, well, will he be able to kind of keep up? Will he be able to have the knowledge? Can he kind of close the gap among some of these people who've been playing Warzone for the last 3 years at a competitive level? Personally, I think yes, right? I've been a fan of Clayster for a while, and if there's one thing you know, the dude is a gamer, okay? He will play any and everything out there, but more importantly, he really kind of, it's that competitive drive in him where he wants to learn everything about it. He wants to figure out all the interactions, all the nuance, and especially when it's a Call of Duty game, I can only imagine that it's going to be, you know, at a completely different level. So I think he's a very analytical, he's a super smart person. I think when he starts kind of grinding out the game, you know, maybe starts playing ranked a ton, starts actually, maybe if he finds a team and is able to play with them a lot more and kind of sponge some stuff off of his teammates who maybe are more experienced in Warzone per se, I think he's going to actually really close the gap on some of these other competitors, maybe a little bit faster than people expect. Now, when Clayster starts looking for a team, I think he needs to really be careful about the roles that he surrounds himself with, the other squad mates that he does pick up. What I don't want to see happen is Clay just picks up 2 other maybe Call of Duty pros and they just try and go at it without any kind of consideration on the roles that we're seeing make some of the other squads successful. Now, Clay to me fits the sort of IGL anchor role perfectly. He's that guy who can sit back. We know he's extremely proficient with an AR in his hands, and he can be able to kind of have all the information he needs and make the calls that are there. He's used to being an IGL, and he's going to be able to kind of take that role, I feel like, very naturally and be able to make call outs. You don't want him kind of having to play super mixy, right? You don't want him to having to know all the different jump spots and everything on a building. But if the guy can post up with an AR, he's going to absolutely beam people out of windows. He's going to beam them on rotations, and he's going to be able just to kind of play to his true strengths. So if he's going to take up that role, what are the other types of players that he needs to surround himself with? Well, the number one is he just needs a hyper aggro slayer. I think if he has somebody, one of these players that maybe wants to focus just more on gunfights and less on maybe what the best play is, they're going to find a lot of success because Clay's going to be the one kind of directing traffic, and they can just sort of fly at these teams and figure out what they need to do. We see that be really successful with players like Biffle, DJ Moss, Soka, right? Like some of these players who are just, they kind of just get to fly and be able to get the kills where they need to. Now, the third person that I think he needs to slot in is going to be maybe this person who's not afraid to fly into a fight, to get a little mixy if needed, but also someone who's really intelligent about the game. He's going to need that sort of co-IGL, somebody who understands Warzone, so that way if maybe he makes a play call or they make a play call, that they can sort of work off of each other on what the best course of action is, right? You don't want to have Clayster have all of the Warzone knowledge and it be him the sole person making plays. What I can see happening is him being the person like, yo, should we do this? I think this is the play. But if you're with that person who's also really, really intelligent about the game, they can be like, oh no, I actually think this is the play, here's why. And if it's somebody that Clay trusts and has built up that sort of experience with, I think you'll see him be like, you know what, you're right, let's do that. And they're going to be able to kind of shift that sort of space. I think we see a couple other players that really fit that role well. Almond, for one, on TBE. We have Z Smith, who's teaming up with DJ Moss and Ebates, and a handful of others, right, who are not afraid to sort of go in, get mixy in a fight, but they're kind of also not afraid to make their opinion known. So given that we have roster lock for stage 2 coming up very, very quick, I am hoping that Clayster is able to either put together a team or find himself on a team that sort of fits this role, because I think that this could be really, really, really exciting for at least stage 2 of the World Series of Warzone. As somebody who's on the analyst desk and I have to research these teams and talk about them, this is sort of what I love, right? Like thinking about, why does this person work on this squad? What do they bring to the table? And specifically when we talk about a world champion like Clayster, like it just makes a lot of sense. I would love to see him be one of the first sort of Call of Duty professionals who moves over to Warzone, because I think that can be something that we start seeing, right? As maybe some of these more mature, older multiplayer sort of phenoms, as they kind of maybe end their careers on the multiplayer side, there is definitely a path for them to come over to Warzone, to be a content creator, to still play in these tournaments, and there's definitely cash to be made. So while we talk about, maybe potentially other pros coming over, leave a comment. Let me know, what pro do you want to see move on over from multiplayer? Who do you think would have some success? And well, do you think Clayster is a force to be reckoned with if he can get an experience and the team? Only time will tell.